welcome to 27 Travels. It's just me today, Shanna. Usually my girlfriend Gabby is with me, but she is behind the camera today.
Yeah, guys, I'm operating the camera today. I have the headphones and everything, so I'm listening to sound, let me tell you.
But the reason why it's only me is because one of the requested videos that you guys wanted to see was how to edit video. And the reason why I believe I am qualified to tell you guys this is because I have been a professional videographer for over 6 years, and I've actually been editing videos even longer than that. I actually taught myself how to video edit in high school and then went to college for it, and now I do it as my freelance career. So I really wanted to show you guys some of my editing tips and tricks, and also kind of how to edit from a beginner standpoint, because I think that's what a lot of you guys wanted to know. I think this video is going to have to be 2 parts, so like one part like the intro and the second part like more of like the creative stuff. So this is the intro and we are going to dive right in. So I think the most important thing that you have to know about video editing before you can even start is that video editing is all about telling a story. Whatever clips you're filming, you're gonna all put them together to tell some kind of story. And sometimes you might have an idea beforehand, like sometimes you might go into filming knowing what you want the end product to be. But a lot of times, even for videos that I do, I just kind of film stuff and then kind of like find the story as I'm putting it together. So that is the one thing you need to know, is that your video has to have a story to it. That's what makes your video stand out. That's what makes people want to stay engaged with your video when they're watching it, because they want to know how the story is going to turn out. So there has to be a beginning, has to be a middle, and there has to be an end to your video. So like I said, if you have an idea of how you want the story to go, then you probably already know the order that you want to put the clips in to be able to tell your story. But if you don't have an idea, this is really handy if you're filming a vlog. The easiest way to find the story is to kind of just put the clips in the order that you film them in. That's because like you experiencing out your day, like if you have a vlog of like, you know, a day in the life vlog, or, you know, my trip to Africa vlog, like the easiest way to find the story of that trip is to just put the clips in the order that you film them in, because there's already a story there. There's a story for your days, a story for your trip. So you'll be able to find that really easily. And each day has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So that's the easiest way, if you don't already have an idea planned, to kind of find the story and be able to put your clips in the right order. One thing that people always ask me is what program should they use for video editing? And there are a lot of options here. There are free programs, there are paid programs. The one that I use is Final Cut Pro 10, and I've been using that since I graduated college, basically. I use it for all my professional video editing stuff. Whenever I'm editing a video for a client or working for someone else, I always edit on Final Cut Pro 10. The other one that is most commonly used is Adobe Premiere, but both of those you have to pay for. So I believe Adobe is a monthly fee that you can add on if you have like Photoshop or Lightroom, things like that. You can just add Premiere onto that. I think it costs a little bit more money. But Final Cut Pro, I believe it's only for Macs, but it's like a $300 flat fee, and then once you purchase it, you have it for life. So I use Final Cut Pro 10. But if you don't want to pay for video editing software, you definitely don't have to. There are a bunch of free options. If you have a Mac, iMovie is really, really good. iMovie actually looks really similar to Final Cut Pro 10, so if you start an iMovie and you know want to upgrade at some point, you'll be really easily able to upgrade to Final Cut Pro 10. There's another more basic video editing software called Movie Maker. I personally never used it, but a few people have told me that they have used it and they've had good experiences with it, so I would recommend checking that one out too. But my personal recommendation is, if you're in the Mac family, start with iMovie first, and then if you really love video editing, you can upgrade to Final Cut Pro 10 later on. So next what we're gonna do is I'm going to go to my computer and I'm going to screen record kind of some things that I do in video editing, like importing clips, how to cut clips, how to put stuff together, things like that. And we'll just go from there. So I'll see you on my laptop. So since I use Final Cut Pro to edit, I'm going to show you guys how to do everything editing-wise in Final Cut Pro. But if you don't have this program, don't worry. A lot of editing software is very, very similar, so a lot of the menu options will be the same. So just kind of look for a similar menu option on your editing software, and you should be able to achieve the same thing. So the way that most video editing software works is that it organizes the clips and all of the projects that you're working on into certain categories. So for example, Final Cut Pro organizes it by library. So when you have a new project, I recommend that you start a new what's called library. And you do that by, once Final Cut Pro is open, just clicking the file button, clicking new, and then clicking library. And then you can kind of title that library whatever you want. Every time I make a new video, I just make a new library so that everything can kind of be sorted through there. And then within the library, you're going to want to add what's called an event. And by adding an event, it just helps keep your video editing more organized. So what I do is I organize it by video clips. So one event will be clips, one event will be sound, one event will be graphics, kind of like things like that. It just helps to keep your project a little bit more organized and it's easier to find stuff. Then the next thing that you want to do is you want to create a project. The project is what you're actually going to be editing within. So that's a really important step to do. So then the next thing is you're going to click File, New, Project, and then you're going to title the project whatever you want to title it. It's also important that here you choose the dimensions of the video that you want. It really depends on what you're editing the video for, but most web-based videos are going to be 1920 by 1080. And that's the one I'm going to choose for this. That's the best for like YouTube. So once your project is created, it's going to open what's called the timeline. And the timeline is what's down here at the bottom. You can see that there's some time codes up here. There's not going to be anything in the timeline right now, but that's where you're going to add your clips. Every video editing software has a timeline. So as long as you kind of understand that this is just where you're going to be editing the video, that's all you really need to know. So the first step that you're going to want to do when you're getting ready to video edit is to import your clips. So one way to do that is you're going to click the File option and then you're going to click Import. And then there's an option that says Import Media. So once you click Import Media, it's going to bring up this new window that shows all the locations, whether it be on your desktop or on a hard drive. As you can see, I have a 27 Travels hard drive plugged in here. And then you just have to choose the location where the video clips are to upload them. So I'm going to choose these video clips here. I kind of already edited this video, but I'm just going to put them together again just to kind of show you guys how to do it. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to drag all of your clips into the timeline to start editing. There are two ways you can do this, and depending on what kind of video editing I'm doing, I do it both ways. The first way is you can just drag in each clip one by one. So for example, I'll go to the clip event and then I'll just drag the first clip in, I'll watch that clip, I'll edit that clip, and then I'll go to the next one. Or you can just drag all the clips in at once and just watch it straight through and then edit out the parts that you don't want that way. So when you're selecting the clips to put in the timeline, you want to try and select only the clips where you're talking, and you want to save the B-roll for later. It's just going to be easier to be able to cut through all the talking clips first, and then you could fix the B-roll later on. So now that all of your clips are in the timeline, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to watch them through, and then you're going to want to cut out any parts that are unnecessary, that don't fit the story, or maybe you made a mess up, things like that. So the easiest way to do that is you're going to want to make sure that you're scroll to the beginning of the timeline. So you're going to want to take your mouse pad and just scroll to the left. That way it goes all the way back to the beginning. And then you're going to want to hit the space bar. And the space bar is the play button, essentially. So you're going to watch it through. A lot of times, like especially for me, I notice that when I'm filming, I have a little bit of a space in the beginning because I'm pressing the record button, whatever, so I'm going to want to cut that out. To do that, you just press the space bar up until the point where you want the video to start. Once you have that, then you're going to want to click the blade tool. All video editing software have some kind of blade tool. It's the most important tool in video editing because it's how you cut in and out of clips. So for this example, I'm going to show you how to do it using the menu bar, but there are some key shortcuts to do it to make it faster. So once you have your timeline cursor in the spot where you want the video to start, basically everything to the left of the video is where you're going to want to cut it out for the purposes of this clip. So I'm going to want to go to trim and then blade. You'll see it'll make like a little dotted line, and that will be the cut. So now it should look like there are two clips instead of just one. Then what you're going to do is you're going to want to go to the left of where the timeline cursor is. Just select that clip and then hit the delete button on your keyboard. There's also another way to use the blade tool, and you can just do the keyboard shortcut on a Mac, which is Command B. That way you don't have to go to the menu all the way up at the top every time you want to use the blade tool. So you can just hit Command B on your keyboard, and that will automatically bring up the blade tool on your cursor, and then you can start cutting. So now I'm going to watch through, and then let's say right now I come to a point where I want to cut out a part of the middle of the video. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to watch the clip through, and then once you get to the part where you finish saying what you want to say, you're going to press the space bar so that the cursor is there. Then you're going to want to do the blade tool again, so either trim and blade or the Command B option, and then you're going to want to put that dotted line at the end of what you're saying. Then you're going to want to let the clip play through until you get to the next part where you like what you're saying again. Then you're going to want to do the blade tool again. That way it will create that dotted line in the middle section of the clip that you want to delete. Then all you need to do is select that part of the clip with your mouse and then click the delete button on your keyboard. Then you can see that clip is gone. So that really is the basics of video editing. Once you kind of get this down, you'll be able to cut the beginning of your videos, the middle of your videos, the end of your videos, and this is really the gist of it. It does take a little bit of finagling to get it right. Sometimes you might not cut it exactly where you want it, but what's cool about Final Cut is it lets you kind of like drag certain things out or in a little bit more. So say you make a cut and it's not exactly where you want it, you can just select the end of the clip and then just drag it out a little bit more to finish the sentence, for example, or if you left too much space at the end, you can drag it inwards. But yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to the actual cutting of the video. And now we're gonna move on to the next step. So after you've cut your entire video to a point where you like every aspect that's in it, then you're kind of ready to add some B-roll in. Okay, so one important thing that your video doesn't necessarily need, but I personally think it needs, is B-roll. Now B-roll is kind of like those like transitional clips where like you're not talking directly to camera like I'm doing now, but like maybe, you know, you're walking through a park and you're just filming yourself or your friend or whoever walking through the park, or maybe you're doing a little close-up on something. That's called B-roll, and the reason why it's called B-roll, if anyone cares, I don't know if anyone will, but I think this is interesting, is that back in the day when video used to be shot on film, there was the A-roll, which was the primary roll, which was the stuff that was most important, and then there was the B-roll of film, which was the stuff that was like secondary, and that still translates today, even though we're filming everything digitally. So just a little fun history fact there. But I think that it adds to the video. It can add context to what you're saying. It can make your video just look more aesthetically pleasing. And it could be like a really simple way to add transitions into your video if you don't already have transitions in your library, or if you don't want to find free ones. So when you're ready to import the B-roll into your video, there are a few ways you can do it. You could actually even do this at the beginning when you're dragging all of the clips into the timeline. You can just drag the B-roll with it. But the method I would suggest is, especially in Final Cut Pro, you can kind of see what the clips are in this little inspector window here. Oh yeah, one other important thing that you want to do with B-roll clips is you want to make sure that you actually mute the audio on them, because usually B-roll is either being edited to music or being used as a transition. All you're going to want to do is click this line right here in the audio part of the clip and just drag it all the way down, and that will just mute the sound on that particular video clip instantly. And you just want to make sure that you do that to all of your B-roll clips, because you don't want any sound to be coming out of those. If you know you're talking about, for example, in this video, I'm talking about bagels. So if you know you're talking about a bagel, maybe I find the B-roll clip that looks like you know, I'm at the bagel place, and I'll just drag that into the spot where I want it to go, and then I'll cut it right there directly in the spot. So for the purposes of this video, I'm just gonna go through and select the B-roll that I think matches with the clip that is already into my timeline. I'm just gonna add it in there. There are a few different kinds of B-roll you can do. For the purposes of this video, I think I mostly took B-roll that I was thinking would be used for transitional purposes, which means to get from one clip to the other without it just being me talking and then me in a different spot talking again. I took some B-roll so that would flow a little bit better. If you want to use B-roll to kind of like supplement something that you're already saying, you can actually drag the B-roll just directly on top of the clip, and then your voice will be underneath it, but the clip will show what the B-roll is actually showing instead of you just talking. So you can do that as well, depending on what kind of video you're making, what you're talking about, what B-roll clips you took. You might want to do that as well, so you can also do that. Okay, so once you kind of have your video in a place where you feel like it's finished, where you feel like, you know, all the cuts are clean, all the B-roll is added in, then you're ready to export it. So in Final Cut Pro, you go to the File menu option and then you click Share, and then it'll bring up a bunch of different menu options. There are some things like, you know, save to Apple devices, export to Vimeo, things like that, but I always choose save as master file just because it gives you the most control over the file size and things like that. And you're gonna wanna click share, and it's gonna pop up where you want to save the video. I just recommend saving it somewhere where you're gonna remember where it is. I keep all my videos on an external hard drive, and I have it all organized by folders, but you can save it to your desktop if you want. And then you're just gonna click save, and then a new window on Final Cut Pro is gonna pop up, and it's gonna show you the percentage of how long the video has until it's completed exporting. And once it gets to 100%, the video is done. It's exported, and then it's gonna be wherever you saved it to. And one thing I really like about Final Cut Pro versus Adobe Premiere is that it actually renders the video while you're working on it, which means that when you're ready to export the video, it's really fast. Adobe Premiere doesn't render the video while you're working on it, so at the end, the video has to completely render first, and then it has to export, so it takes a lot longer. All right, so that was the end of part 1 of my beginner tutorial to video editing. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Hopefully you learned something. I mean, I think it's really important for me to be able to share, you know, my video editing tips, because I actually taught myself how to video edit via like YouTube tutorials and forums back in the early 2000s. So if I could help anyone in any sort of way, that'd be super awesome. And yeah, so that is the end of part 1 for video editing. We're gonna get a little bit more in depth about like how to, you know, do some more creative stuff to your videos, like LUTs, like transitions, like color correcting in part 2. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But for now, that is the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to 27 Travels, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye, Shanna.
Bye.